now is the time, a time you'll look back on, a time you adopt as inspiration. You will recollect this time, this moment, right now. Motivate yourself towards success. Overcome, take over. The time is now.
Hello, Pete.
We're back.
How is everybody?
Like we were never
back,
ever away. Sorry?
Yeah, we are back, Pete. Yeah, it's back with a bang. Back with Ben with us tonight. First of all, apologies. We're short in numbers. A few of the lads are working, and but they will be back later in the week. Looking forward to having Richie back with us as well for a review show on Sunday, I think, or maybe even away days. We'll see how it all lands. Shout out to Mart, who is working hard. Busy as always, Mart. Flying the flag. Still don't know how he fits in the suit. I'll never figure that out. But look, we won't delay because Ben is on a tight schedule and we're going to get him out straight away and get into the action. So here's Ben. Welcome, Ben. Welcome back.
Good evening, gents. Good to be back.
Good.
Great to have you on. And thank you again for taking the time to come on loaded to talk all things Newcastle and a little bit of things that maybe are not quite Newcastle related, or are they? We'll certainly get into it down the road. But first and foremost, look, Ben, the last time we spoke, we were in a great position in the Premier League. Let's be honest, it wasn't our sort of finest hour. But look, in the last few months, a lot of things have changed for Newcastle. Us as Newcastle fans are aware of the rise of Eddie Howe and the players and the squad. But from a sort of, I would say, I won't say quite an outside perspective, maybe a semi-outside perspective, because we all know you're a Geordie fan at heart.
Just like we all know that you're a Leicester fan at heart.
No. It doesn't work the other way, man. But you know, what's your perspective on the sort of rise of Newcastle from your point of view, from what you've seen over the last few months?
I think it's just really encouraging, isn't it? And you wanted an instant impact post-takeover on and off the field, and that's exactly what happened. And I think the impact off the field came quicker than the impact on the field. So what was refreshing about the ownership group was that Amanda Staveley in particular, and to some extent the Reuben brothers, were very open with the fan base. They engaged with them on social media. They were actively, like you can see in that photograph there, a part of the fan base, the culture, the matchday experience. And of course, from an outside perspective, the only thing that's missing is hearing from the majority owner. And I still think that there's a need for Yasser Al-Rumayyan and PIF to be a part of this move for transparency. But certainly short-term wins for the ownership group off the field in reconnecting with the fan base. And then on it just took a bit longer, didn't it, for things to really click. And in a perverse way, I think the FA Cup loss to Cambridge was actually quite important because it galvanized everybody. And after that, there was a regrouping about mentality, about priorities, and then immediately into the bulk of the transfer window, at which point Newcastle signed Kieran Trippier very early. And he, before he was injured, obviously had a very big role to play in one or two of the results and got himself on the score sheet as well and showed his overall quality. And after that, I think everything just clicked and Newcastle became the one side in that relegation fight that really had momentum on their side. And there was an obvious contrast between Newcastle's rise, which was partly, of course, down to some of the new faces, but I think Eddie Howe deserves credit too for getting it tactically right. And Newcastle, in addition to getting points at St James's Park, where they were always likely to improve because the fan base were on their side and so vocal, but the away performances are much better as well, because Newcastle suddenly are turning up to games on the road without underdog syndrome, without negativity. There's a plan tactically, and there's a passion and cohesiveness in the football squad. And I think that what I've liked the most is Newcastle on the road, because that's where you really see the personalities. And two games kind of stand out for me. One is the win over Leeds. The other is the comeback victory over Southampton. And the reason for that is because we saw lots of different components. We saw Kieran Trippier being dominated by Jack Harrison and then adjusting, which shows his intelligence. We showed the defense digging in. We showed kind of, I think, different sides of Newcastle in terms of the personalities in that game, because everyone came together and the camaraderie and the chemistry was evident, and the importance of that win showed what a kind of tight unit the team had become, even with a lot of new faces. And then even more impressive for me was the Southampton away win, because even though Southampton are quite poor, it was, again, a Newcastle side that dug in, and definitely the kind of game they would have lost under Steve Bruce or last season. And again, a number of key characters, if you like, were evident in that game. So Chris Wood didn't do a great deal, but he showed he can go and get those goals out of nothing using his big physical presence. And that's exactly why he's been signed, just to weigh in with a few goals and get Newcastle out of trouble. And that win probably gave Newcastle enough breathing space at that point to be clear enough from trouble that they are now safe, or they're certainly 3 points away from safety. Dan Burn was magnificent in both boxes. And even though he's kind of tall and physical and lanky, he's got finesse. And I think he showed that at both ends, with a goal-scoring clearance and then a role in the ridiculous Bruno backheel volleyed finish. And then obviously with Joe Linton injured, Bruno comes in and he shows not only why he's a fan favourite, but that he's going to get box to box. He's going to come with energy, and he is going to be a player over time that develops. Bit of a slow burner, I think, because he actually wasn't that good in the game. He gave the ball away quite carelessly in midfield, but he got his goal, he got box to box, and very much that kind of mentality that the fan base will love. So I think in essence, what we've seen is instant success in terms of the relationship between the ownership group and the fans, and then a slow progress as the new signings have bedded in and the older ones have got more confidence, that now effectively see Newcastle safe, even if mathematically that's not the case.
I think that's a really good assessment of the sort of the rise of Newcastle, in particular those two games. I found myself sort of like nodding as you were talking it through, because I agree. The games against Leeds and Southampton, they were games that I think if any Newcastle fan was honest with themselves, they'd probably think, you know what, we haven't got a chance in this game, or we might really struggle, because they're grounds that we're, you know, Leeds we haven't travelled to for a while, but Leeds have always got that opportunity of turning it on, because we've seen it. We saw it again when they went to West Ham and you know, tore them to shreds at times. So we knew they had that capacity. And actually, that win wasn't too long before we actually played them. And in Southampton, as we've already alluded to, they only lost one game at home before you came to town. So those games were kind of the ones where it made us think, actually, yeah, you know what, we're going in a different direction here. And definitely, you know, you've talked about the likes of Dan Burn and Trippier coming in. I know he's not played a lot. It's a massive, massive plus from our point of view, and it has been a great rise. And you know, myself and Daz have been on many a show, and we've talked about that rise in itself. But you know, just before we move on, because I know we're short on time, we've got a number of things we want to talk to you about. You know, did you expect quite a rise? 9 games unbeaten in that period of time. Were you expecting that?
I think I wasn't expecting the win, or certainly unbeaten streak that we've actually seen, but I was certainly expecting a spike in form And I think the reason that Leeds win was so key was because it came into an international break. And I think if you don't win away at Leeds, the whole complexion of the break and then the fixtures afterwards are very different. But when you actually look at the games that they've won, you would almost expect Newcastle to win those games if they're a confident Newcastle side and with the quality that they've added. So there's a sort of surprise element in how quickly they've got out of trouble, especially given how everyone wrote Newcastle United off in December. But there's no real surprise that once one win came after that first win, obviously separate to this run, once the second win of the season came, that the floodgates kind of opened as far as more improved results. That part didn't necessarily surprise me, but the quickness in which Howe's been able to redefine the tactics and the mentality, the way in which Newcastle have less fear away from home, the manner in which they start games quicker, the way in which one or two of the more shaky defenders have just stabilized out of nowhere, the manner in which Joe Linton, when he's fit, shows leadership qualities, like his football had improved again before Howe really came in. And he was able to make key tackles, be tenacious, get box to box, even be tactically astute. But he wasn't necessarily dragging other players' levels up with him at that point. But there just feels like a unified voice as well as a unified style amongst a lot of the key Newcastle starters now. And by unified voice, again, I mean leaders on the field who are actually raising the standards of others. And that's why watching Trippier in the stands, even when he's injured, be a part of the match day experience, especially when everyone said he was only at Newcastle for the money. That's why seeing the delight on the team's face when Chris Wood gets a goal, even though the goal wasn't necessarily that pivotal in the race for safety because Newcastle had breathing space at that point. Seeing, you know, everybody congratulate Bruno in his first Premier League start with his first Premier League goal. Watching Cher be more stable and consistent and reliable. Seeing again, you know, others that are not as known for their defensive qualities, tracking back and making clearances and getting in parts of the pitch where I think if you look at heat maps from the early part of the season, they never were. Fraser maybe is one example of that. I see him tracking back a lot more than perhaps in the previous 6 months or certainly before Howe came in. So everyone just seems to have more stamina and more energy. And when you add momentum and add a few positive results, when you actually say all of that out loud, it perhaps isn't a surprise that Newcastle found this form so quickly.
No, I'm inclined to agree, and certainly with the way that we played after that Leeds games, it's as if it just gave us that confidence to really sort of kick on, and confidence has grown and grown, and I think we're hoping for a little bit of the same because you know the last two games before the break, the international break, weren't in terms of the result, weren't what we wanted. We've already touched on the Everton game and how I think as a fan base we're disappointed that we didn't win that one because I think for the first time in a long time, I think we've gone into a game where we were kind of expecting to win as a team and as a fan base, and we didn't. You know, there was a lot of moving parts about that game that made it really, really difficult. But you know, things. Game, dominant possession, the way we controlled the game for long periods. We think the supporter that came onto the pitch and caused a bit of a stir changed the flow of the game, and it kind of gave the emphasis to Everton. But actually, the point there is, but the point that I wanted to come to you as is the Chelsea game, and not necessarily about the Chelsea game. We know we were disappointed. We should have got a penalty. We should have had a red card, in our opinion, as a fan base. But what I wanted to come to you about is, you know, the build-up to the Chelsea game. And I wanted to get your opinion on this because the build-up and, you know, the questions in the press conferences from a number of our people in the national media, you know, as Newcastle fans have taken it on as a bit of a dig towards Newcastle in particular, and in particular Eddie Howe, in the way you know he was questioned by certain sections of the media, and it was a big talking point. I think it's Tariq Panja who was questioning Eddie Howe in particular about things that were going on in Saudi Arabia, and obviously, linking that to what's been happening in the war with Russia and Ukraine. I just wanted to get your opinion on sort of those things that happened at that point in time. Do you agree with the sort of questioning and how targeted it was with Eddie Howe? Do you think it was fair? But equally, there was been questions asked about Eddie Howe not necessarily answering the questions directly. Do you think that Eddie Howe has a right to answer the questions how he's answered them?
I think that any football manager is always going to come back to the fact that they are a football manager. And if you hit a point where they're peppered with questions with similar angles or similar points, eventually they've got no more answers left to give. And we saw that with Thomas Tuchel as well on the war in Ukraine, who eventually snapped because he'd been asked the same kind of question so many times and he felt he'd given his answer. Howe's problem for me is that he went straight in with, I'm just a football manager. And I think that for somebody that went to Saudi Arabia with Newcastle United, he has to offer a little bit more for me in order to deflect that particular question in a way that may not provide the journalists with the answer that that particular person wants, but will at least offer more insight. He'll come under the maximum amount of criticism if he just brushes off the fact that he is only a football manager. And I think that that's the kind of challenge here, that if someone wants to ask Eddie Howe about 81 beheadings in Saudi Arabia on a single day, they're perfectly entitled to. And to a large extent, it is a fair question. Hello. But I think that if Eddie Howe doesn't want to answer that question, he has to get in a position where he can at least shed some light on some kind of experience that he has undertaken by being in Saudi Arabia. And that might just be, well, when I went, I noticed a positive change in diversity. Or it might be, when I went, I got a tour of the government or medical facilities, or PIF gave me a presentation on Vision 2030. And any of those things allows Eddie Howe to tell us what he knows without being drawn into a political debate. And I think that that is okay for a football manager, because they are providing us with insight, but within the context of what they know. I think when it becomes a bit unfair is when the manager is expected to talk on behalf of the ownership group or the country without any knowledge and without any direct links. And then, of course, all he can do is condemn, let's say, 81 beheadings in Saudi Arabia, and then move on to football and talk to his own personal relationships with the people of Saudi Arabia, specifically PIF. And if I was Eddie Howe, I would have gone more down that line to deflect, but not just deflect by saying I'm only a football manager, because that's almost like saying I don't care. And I think that, of course, his priority is to keep Newcastle United up, but it's also really important to stress that he does have more knowledge than most. Like, the journalist asking the question probably hasn't been to Saudi Arabia, and Eddie Howe has. The journalist asking the question hasn't spoken directly to PIF, and Eddie Howe has. So I think that he does have a duty to shed insight through his eyes in deflecting the question, rather than only deflect the question. And then if he keeps getting goaded on it, keeps getting asked on it, keeps getting pressed on it, at that point it becomes slightly unfair on him. And then I would say I'm torn, because rather than just concluding it's only unfair on Eddie Howe, which is one take, and Newcastle United fans may have that take, I would add that the club are also being unfair on Eddie Howe because they're not putting the majority owner up. So the solution here, if Newcastle United are a transparent football club, is for PIF to come forwards and engage with either the media, or if they don't want to engage with the media, at least the fan base. And then Eddie Howe wouldn't have to answer as many of these questions, because he would say, you've had the opportunity to put that question to Yasser Al-Rumayyan. It's better placed to him than me. And the media wouldn't be able to turn around and say, we've had no choice because you haven't provided us with that person. So that's where I think the club could be a bit more savvy in allowing PIF at some point when they feel it's appropriate a voice, because then Eddie Howe would be under less pressure to be the spokesperson for the club on every single issue.
Yeah, good point, Ben.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think from my perspective, I've just from my observations, particularly after that Chelsea game, and particularly a number of the written stories that came out after that game, I was frustrated that a lot of the talk wasn't about the game. Yes, it was only 1-0, but I actually thought it was a really entertaining game. An entertaining game tactically from two tactically very good managers. And I think it was overshadowed. And I think certain national media journalists overshadowed the fact that it was a really good game on Sky TV, in the lights for the world to see, and tactically was very good, with a number of talking points in the game that were kind of brushed aside because of this issue with the media. And what was interesting for me, and look, Daz, Ben, both of you, feel free to jump in on this. I've observed the situation with Thomas Tuchel in his interviews for the sort of the games leading up to the Newcastle game, and obviously the situation with Chelsea, which I'm sure we'll get into in a second. And what was interesting is that, in the build up to that, Thomas Tuchel refused to answer the questions. He even got animated. He got frustrated and literally had his hands on his head at one point because he didn't want to engage in that question. And then he was kind of, there were questions about him and in that situation. As soon as he turns around and kind of gives them an answer that they want, which was basically after the Newcastle game, which they won, he's lauded as the manager that knows how to talk to the media, and he knows how to respond in a particular way, when actually a week or so before that was an absolute mess in his press conferences and was visibly frustrated by it all. And I just think, from my perspective, I get frustrated because it was almost, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, it was almost in my opinion that they were kind of goading Eddie Howe into a response to make a story out of it. And because they didn't get what they wanted, in particular Tariq Panja, he didn't get what he wanted in a response from Eddie Howe, in that the negativity was pushed his way because they didn't necessarily get what they wanted. And because Thomas Tuchel got or responded in the way that they wanted to, he was almost lauded as this perfect media guy, and he knows how to talk, and he says the right things. And it was only one time that he'd actually done that, and the games before weren't great at all. I mean, am I wrong in thinking that? Was I the only one that noticed that myself? Am I wrong in having that opinion? I don't know. I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah, I think just briefly on that, the Newcastle fan base will have sympathy for their manager. The wider media will have no sympathy for any individual on the Chelsea or the Newcastle side. They will just ask the questions that they think matter. And the fan base will be on the fence as to whether the questions were fair or not fair. I think that there's only so many times you can ask a person a question, and if they feel they've answered that question, you're either going to get nothing out of them or they're going to snap. And in Tuchel's case, he snapped. And in Howe's case, he deflected. And in deflecting, he looked a bit less reasoned and perhaps animated or informed, because he kept bringing it back to football. And I'm sure the fan base will say, well, what else was he supposed to do? And they have 100% sympathy for him. As I said before, my only point on this is not how Howe answered it. And I do have sympathy because he's not the right voice to answer that question. But again, coming back to what I said before, one, if he's not the right voice, the club have to put up the right voice, and that's a PIF representative. Or two, if it remains Howe, he has to offer a bit of insight because he's been to Saudi Arabia. So if you're not going to answer the question, and perhaps the question was unfair, at least offer some insight from your recent trip to Saudi Arabia, because then you're adding to the conversation. The whole point of the club having a Saudi owner is if the club is to promote things that are positive about Saudi Arabia. And again, people like Tariq and journalists will say sport washing constantly. But if the club is to do good and promote Saudi Arabia's progress in certain areas, then the likes of Howe, when they visit, have to clue up on that and provide insight on that and give us a first-person account of what they think and what they've seen, rather than just say, if they wish, I'm only a football manager. Because then if you're only a football manager, why did you go to Saudi Arabia on a training trip in the first place? It wasn't because that was the best place to go. It was because that's where the club wanted you. So then you've got to come back from that trip with some kind of insight to move the conversation along in deflecting. Otherwise, I think the answer looks a bit weaker.
I think that's a fair point. I think that's a fair point with regards to Eddie Howe. And I think he's alluded to that. And I think what he will do in what he said he was going to do in his last press conference is read up a little bit more, do a little bit more research, make sure that he's more informed, that the next time he's able to give a better response. But I know we've only got you for a short period of time, and I know Baz has got a question that I think a lot of people want to know about at the moment.
And I know Ben, you're under serious pressure to leave as well. Well, yeah, I wanted to talk about the sale of Chelsea, and it's been whittled down now to a handful of buyers, even though for those a lot of interest, and I suppose all those seem to be American, I believe. And then I suppose there's at least about 10 potential owners or part owners of Premier League clubs that will have ownership then. And I suppose the other part I wanted to link in was what had come out there this evening about John Terry, and he's kind of agreed with two of the potential buyers a 10% stake for fan ownership kind of thing. So I suppose what's in a short answer, what's your take on the whole Chelsea situation?
So the shortlist is 4. They've all got American links. And the most contentious bidding party is the Ricketts family, who are the owners of the Chicago Cubs. And they have a drive from the Chelsea fan base through this hashtag no to the Ricketts to kind of get them out of the process because of comments made which were Islamophobic, effectively. And they came over and engaged with the Chelsea Supporters Trust and did not get their endorsement. But what was interesting comparative to, say, like Newcastle, is that the prospective owner went straight to the official Supporters Trust and did at least speak to them openly. So that, I think, was quite a bold move, but one that ultimately has backfired because they may have thought in talking to them they'd get an endorsement and they didn't. So that's the most contentious bid, but it's also one that Bruce Buck and Chelsea are very intent on pushing forwards because it's for a good amount. It's got decent plans for the modernisation of Stamford Bridge, and it's a very comprehensive pitch from people that know how to maintain Chelsea on the field and develop it as a brand off the field. And then you have the other leading contender, which is being led by Sir Martin Broughton, and that has its own red flag, to borrow a phrase from the Newcastle takeover.
Think of that one.
That is the involvement of Harris and Blitzer, who have got shares in Crystal Palace. So there'll be no issue with them getting rid of their shares in Palace to buy Chelsea, but it doesn't exactly send the right message or set the right precedent that somebody could just dump a load of shares in one club to go and take over another. So the Premier League can't do anything about that, but Crystal Palace could. As I understand it, Palace are quite happy for them to sell their shares and they would leave on good terms. But if Palace, under the Companies Act, said that their move from one club to another was a breach of director responsibilities under the 2006 Companies Act, they could actually table legal action, and that legal action would delay the owners and directors test and effectively derail that bid, because the Premier League, the government and Chelsea desperately need a quick sale. But I don't think that will happen, so that makes them very strong contenders. And then you have the Todd Boehly bid, which again is pretty comprehensive. The only real difference, as I understand it, is that he would prefer to explore plans to build a new stadium rather than develop Stamford Bridge. And that is a longer term project that would obviously need all kinds of planning permissions and other hurdles. So he may revisit that. And I believe that John Terry's involvement may be through Boehly. And then you also have the owner of the Boston Celtics, who's the sort of mystery bidder that came in late, and a little bit less is known about that. And, you know, in essence, it's an intriguing process, and one that Newcastle fans will be keeping a close eye on, because you couldn't get two further extremes. An 18-month takeover saga and then a 5-minute takeover sale. And not all of it is the Premier League. But one thing that is interesting is that the government are incredibly involved, when previously we were told in the Newcastle sale that the government would have no involvement whatsoever, because it was for the club and the Premier League to decide. And now suddenly with Chelsea, the government have a huge vested interest. And every takeover is different. And the reason the government are involved is because they're getting the funds to obviously allocate to victims of the war in Ukraine. So there is some justification for their involvement. But let's make no mistake here, the prospective owners will pitch directly to the government. So the government will have a say in some of the Chelsea selection process. Maybe not the final say, maybe not a pivotal say, but a say, which is very interesting, given that the government said that they wouldn't have a say, wouldn't have a relationship, wouldn't have a discussion in the Newcastle takeover. So there are some inconsistencies here, but every takeover is different. And, you know, we wait and see whether this much promised Chelsea sale by the end of April is feasible. And if it is feasible, then it somewhat suggests that the Premier League's time spent combing through the Newcastle takeover needs further explanation and transparency, because this is also a very complicated sale, especially because you're not just judging the ownership group, you're also judging where the money goes. And that's no small task. And you've got all 4 ownership groups that have to do their due diligence as well. And that should take several months, and they're having to do it in several days. So there are a lot of question marks about process here, process of the government, involvement of the government, process of the Premier League, involvement of the Premier League. Can something just be rubber stamped because it's urgent from Chelsea's perspective, but it was urgent from Newcastle's perspective because they were rotting under Mike Ashley whilst PAF were waiting to come in? So there's a lot of these questions, and I totally understand why the Newcastle fan base will feel there's hypocrisy at play in how the two processes are being carried out. But you know, the common ground with both is we need transparency. We need to know exactly what happens still with the Newcastle takeover, and we need to have a clear transparency around Chelsea's takeover as well, to make sure that nothing relevant is being hidden from the general public, and to make sure that there is a consistency behind how both the government and the Premier League are acting.
Interesting, very interesting. Right, just before you go, do you think Chelsea are going to be sold by April? And have you got a preferred option that you think will take the reins?
I think they'll be sold by April because the process is quite rigid. It's being treated like a tender, not a takeover. So usually the deadlines are hit, and obviously selling or agreeing a sale and completing a sale are not the same thing. So once they agree on a sale, there still may be months. And the point of agreeing the sale is at that stage, Chelsea's assets may be unfrozen. So they may be able to use their weight in a transfer market or sell season tickets for 2022, 2023. But obviously, if you're not going to get it done by the end of April, dragging it into May, June, July doesn't make a massive amount of difference because you're heading into the off season. So I expect what will happen is that the preferred bidder will be named, the singular preferred bidder will be named at the end of April. It will be confirmed that a sale has been agreed. Then they will do the logistical side of things, i.e. any further due diligence in a period of exclusivity, the owners and directors test with the Premier League, which comes after all of that, the transfer of funds, and that will probably still take 2 months or 3 months. So then officially they'll be through the door for the new season, but as far as process is concerned, they'll effectively be locked in for the end of April. And I think the way that end of April process will be safeguarded is that whoever is chosen will agree that there's almost no back out. And if they are to back out, they probably won't get a large portion of the money that they have to lay down back. So I think that Chelsea will be quite confident once they name a singular bidder that even if it takes a few more months to be completed, that they'll get their sale and there'll be nothing in the closet that forces a U-turn or a late dramatic twist. And then in terms of the bidders, I think that the Broughton Blitzer Harris one is the big favourite. I think that Bowley is your sort of dark horse, and I don't think anyone else stands a chance. But had there not been the furore around the Ricketts family, they would have been a clear contender because they've got such a strong bid. But I just think that optics are so important in this sale that I would be staggered if they end up taking over the football club.
Cool.
Interesting, very interesting.
So, are you happy that the Saudi media group didn't make the shortlist? I think we are.
Yeah, I mean, the Saudi media group's not PIF. So I think everyone loves to just affiliate a group with a country and then a country with government, and then government comes back to PIF, even if there's no separation, and PIF comes back to Newcastle, and then eventually there's rivals or overlap. But, you know, Saudi Media Group are a private entity who have nowhere near the wealth or funds of Newcastle United, and they had a vested interest because the people leading the consortium were Chelsea fans. So it doesn't really surprise me in any way, shape or form that they were in the mix, because it's good to be in the mix for their profile and their company and their football fans. And it was a serious bid at a serious price. I mean, 2.7 billion is one of the highest bids of the early stages. The final Chelsea price will probably be a little bit higher than that, closer to 3 billion. But at that point that they bid, they were the highest bid. So they obviously were serious about it. But again, optics is so important as a speed of sale in this particular scenario. And I think the speed of the sale worked against them, unfortunately, on this occasion.
Okay. Well, me and Daz are going to continue having this chat and talking all things Newcastle United. But Ben, I know you have to shoot off really quickly. Massive thanks to having you on for this short period of time. We had a ton more questions that were going to come your way, not just from the chat, but from us. Hopefully we'll be able to get you back on at a later date to continue this conversation, because I think it's an intriguing one. I think it's got a lot of moving parts that we've not seen yet. Yeah,
absolutely. Pleasure. And let's come on again ahead of the Pete Derby, Leicester against Newcastle at St James's Park, and we can continue the conversation.
It's coming soon.
Let's do that. Let's book it in, because I'm actually at that game, and it would be great to have an away days chat, and we can talk all things the game and also continue this conversation then.
I'll look forward to it, guys.
I'll be in touch. Top man.
Thanks for joining us.
Cheers, guys. All the best. Take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Brilliant stuff. Great to have Ben.
Exactly. Great to have Ben. And all the people slagging me off that I wasn't getting a word in. I was trying to give the time to Ben so he could, because I knew he only had a half an hour with us, which he ran over, 10 minutes over. So, hands up function. It's an option. It's an option. We may consider something like that. But as I said as well, get your questions in the chat for myself and Pete. Now, Pete, I did put a few things in. I didn't think we'd need them, but I put a few things into our system as well for us to talk about. Well, maybe I'll take this opportunity now to ask people, if they haven't done so already, to hit that subscribe button. And it's a red button, bottom right-hand corner of the screen, and hit that. It's subscribes you to the channel. It's free. If you'd like to become a member, which a number of people are, there's a join button there, and for €1.99 a month, you become a member of Loaded. And we have a number of draws coming up next week. Actually, we're going to run a few draws next week because we haven't had one for a while, so that should be fun. So yeah, let's take Craig Hope's article first, Pete. And it's hard to see this, but I tried to kind of capture it all on the few tweets together. So he started off by talking about Dan Ashworth, and it's looking like it could potentially be November before he gets to join us. So he's still working on that garden, yeah. So I suppose it's playing out in the background. Brighton and Newcastle are trying to still do a deal, and it's the kind of article, kind of quick summary from a glance of it last night, that they might Newcastle may need to go with the same team that they went with for the January transfer window, with Steve Nixon, Eddie Howe, and Amanda Meredith, really, I suppose, running the show. And I know Dan Ashworth's role is more than just transfers. He'd be involved in that in some capacity as well, but it's more setting the DNA and setting a structure there. But it would be nice to have him with us. But what's your thoughts on this? We'll focus on the Dan Ashworth bit first, on us not potentially having them, or do you think something will get worked out as we get closer? Because if the longer Brighton leave it, the less they were likely to get from any kind of compensation package. So, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because I'd actually heard the opposite, Dad. I'd actually heard that throughout this gardening leave period that Brighton can command whatever they want. There's not a set fee in place, and obviously that fee would naturally, like you've said, is dwindle down over his garden leave period. Yeah. I don't think I could be wrong, but I did hear that there wasn't actually necessarily a fee in place, so they could demand a huge amount of money. And it's been touted that there's been a huge amount of money demanded by Brighton, and they could demand that amount of money all the way up to the day in which his gardening leave ends, which is not ideal. And I think this is why Newcastle, quite rightly, have been a little bit hasty in terms of just paying that money. Brighton are clearly trying to take advantage of Newcastle, thinking we've got loads of money to splash, and Newcastle are doing it exactly how I would expect Newcastle to do it, is to say, nah, we're not going to play ball with you. We'll play ball when we're ready to play ball. Questions, is it frustrating? Yes. We would like him in. We would like him a part of the setup and putting things in place that he would want for the club now, ready for the summer, ready to really kick off next season in the way that we want to. However, the one thing I'll say is that, this story from Craig Hope and others that have talked about it since isn't necessarily a negative one, because they've talked about, yes, it could be up until November that we could be waiting. However, they have also said that it's not going to affect the plans that the club have got for the summer. That's the key for us. Because the summer plans are the key that's going to take us to the next level in terms of who we're looking to sign. It looks like, and it sounds like, that those sort of plans are already well in motion, and they've got a list of players that they're working through right now. So is it going to be the worst thing in the world if we wait until later on into the summer, maybe even into the next season? Not really, because Dan Ashworth isn't in for 6 months. He's not here for 6 months worth of work. He's here for the next 10 years. Yeah. And I think just like the consortium, our new ownership, waited 4 years to finally get their club, I think they're quite content to wait a little bit longer for Dan Ashworth to come in, because they know that when Dan Ashworth comes in, he's going to be the guy that really ramps things up and takes it forward. Do I think it affects transfers? No, because as I've said, they're clearly working on a plan. So I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. It's frustrating, it's annoying, but not the worst thing in the world, because as everyone's already talked about, the deal's done. He's going to be going to Newcastle at some point. It's not like he's going to get picked by somebody else and somebody else steals him from us. He's coming to
exactly, Pete. And like when he comes, and I know when he started in Brighton, and perhaps with the FA as well, that he comes in with a 5-year plan. Don't I suppose. I suppose maybe that can be escalated a bit or accelerated a bit even because he'll have the financial backing behind him. But yeah, he's going to be trying to change everything, and so it's worth. He's going to be worth waiting for. So let him. Look, his garden is looking really well behind him there. So we'll give him another chance. I've been waiting to run. For us to run a show with when we do actually get him on board, and kind of an announcement as well of what he intends to bring. I suppose you wondered in the question. I think Chris put it in our own chat today, and legally maybe no one can actually say this, but I wonder, can he be doing a bit of working from home in the background? You know, I'm sure what's to stop him, like putting a few plans in place, you know, in the background, but. Hey, we don't know anything about that. It's only I'm only speculating there. All right, let's go back to Craig Hope's article as well, because there's more information in that article. Because Craig Hope also talks about the Newcastle recruitment meetings that are taking place for the summer window, and it says here about, I know it's hard to read, but that they're going to look at a goalkeeper, a centre back, centre midfielder, a winger, and a centre forward. So, and it does list a few names there as well. So, what are your thoughts there, Pete? Because and a lot of the names that are listed, we talked about them on the fully loaded transfer for show, and we could even probably we could definitely put a name into each of those categories for sure. But what's your thoughts on where they want to strengthen, and also, I guess, it does kind of pinpoint if they're strengthening each of those positions, and then along with what they've done in January, it does kind of, it's the writings on the wall for. You could even put one of our existing players into each of those categories who would be going out the door as well. So, what's your thoughts?
I thought it was very, very interesting that was said by Craig Hope that was. That was being touted, that they were the positions that we're looking at. It wasn't interesting because it was a shock. It wasn't a shock. Look, anybody that's watched Loaded HQ over the last number of months since the takeover happened will know, in particular in January, that we have all talked about at some point that in order for this team to really move forward and not be this team in the bottom half of the table fighting relegation and a team mid-table looking up towards Europe, is that the spine of the team needs to be invested in. New goalkeeper, new centre-back, new centre midfielder, a striker, and then on the side of that, a winger, maybe a fullback here to improve things. And that's exactly what Craig Hope has said. So it doesn't surprise me that that's the case. I think it's interesting that some of the players that we've already talked about in the Fully Loaded Transfer Show, and actually if you go back to those Fully Loaded Transfer Shows, we might have not talked about them as if they were going to be guaranteed signings in January. But it was very clear from the links and the talk that they were players that Newcastle admired, and they're on that list of potential players that, yes, we didn't actually get in January. Maybe they weren't available, but they're players that are on the list for the future. And you're seeing some of those players being linked now. You know, the likes of Darwin Núñez being one of them. I love talking about him. I talk about him all day. I'll be an absolute blubbering mess if he goes anywhere else.
He's going in the back of your jersey, Pete, when he does it right.
We talked about him way back when, even before the transfer window started, someone like Darwin Núñez coming in. But, you know, players like that, yes, weren't available in January, understandably, Benfica in the latter stages of the Champions League. But they're players on the list that Newcastle are seriously looking at. What was really interesting is Aaron Hickey being linked by Fabrizio Romano. I have to say, our friend of the channel, Sean Casey, in a conversation with me, had mentioned Aaron Hickey way back in the January transfer window, and he wasn't even linked to anybody at that point, not even Newcastle. But yet, interestingly, he said, "Yeah, he's a player that we're looking at," and all of a sudden that link pops up.
That's an interesting one, Pete. Though Aaron Hickey, no, I haven't really seen him play that much, but I've heard his name mentioned a good few times. I know he's playing for Bologna in Italy, but where would that leave Matt Targett? So. I also then when looking today, I just on Aaron Hickey, and he can play he plays predominantly left back or left wing back, or he can also play on the as a right back. So would do you think Newcastle, and it's not even on the list of Craig Hope's list there, there's no left, but I imagine we would sign Matt Targett, but if we were, and unless Villa, I thought there was a 15 million fee agreed for that was the rumor, wasn't it, as well, for Targett? Where does that leave Hickey, or vice versa?
It's a great question. It's a great question, Daz. And it was rude. Initially, when the Targett deal went through, there wasn't any talk of an agreed fee in the summer. So it was really interesting and surprising that it came out, a number of weeks ago that there apparently was a deal in place. Look, Matt Targett's been fantastic, and I'd sign him 110%.
Yeah.
What I see the Aaron Hickey deal being is a deal that actually spells the end of Jamal Lewis at Newcastle United rather than Matt Targett. I think Newcastle signed both, and the reason being is exactly what you've just alluded to. And you're absolutely spot on in terms of he can play both right and left back.
Yeah,
he's very versatile. Now, if Aaron Hickey had stayed in Scotland, he'd probably be playing Premier League football now already. And people would be talking about him and lauding about him, about how good he is. He's a terrific young player. It was a surprise when he went over to Bologna, I think, in Italy, to play there. When he got signed over there, it was a real surprise. Nobody expected it. But what that shows, maturity. He's played in a foreign country. He's not afraid to kind of go out and test himself at a different level and a different style of football. He'll be coming back to English football ready, or British football, should I say, ready to really hit the ground running. And I think that puts, I think it'll put pressure on Jamal Lewis. It'll put pressure on potentially the likes of Manquillo. I don't think it puts pressure on Targett or Trippier. I think, they're the guys that will sign. We've got Trippier. I think we'll sign Targett and we'll sign Hickey to play in and around that, because it's a squad game in the Premier League. It's a squad game. And, he's still a very, very young player. He's got loads of time to build and develop into his career. And we need to sign players for the future, and he's definitely one of them. So I don't see it as an alternative to Targett. I think it's in addition to him. And at 15 million for a young lad, peanuts.
Yeah, and that it just kind of makes we did actually make a mockery out of it already, but that 60 million fee that Luke Edwards had out there about a week ago, it kind of that list of who we want to bring in, and we're diverging from that list and buying two left backs, or left back / right back. So who knows? Again, it's that's why it makes it exciting, and we have hope now, and we our fully loaded transfer shows are going to be fully loaded come the summer again. Sorry, Martin. Sorry about that. But yeah, and Mad Mark is agreed with you as well. Yeah, about Jamal Lewis could be the one to make way. And I think I saw somewhere as well that the fee of something like 8 million or something like that Newcastle are going to. So they're going to take a hit on getting rid of him. Of course, he hasn't really lived up to it. And he didn't also get a chance, because we all when the 25-man squad did come out, we were kind of hoping that he was injured, but he wasn't going to get too much of games, and going out on loan was his best option. And but yeah, situation he left himself in. But yeah, look, I'm going to take one or two of the questions from the chat as well. I thought this was an interesting one from Yano, and yeah, seriously, guys. Why you do believe the channel is not attracting the number of subscribers it richly deserves? What plans do you have for improving the situation? Which is a very good question. And we are always talking about ways how we can improve the channel. We do have a big week coming up. There's a few names that haven't been mentioned at all. One of them being a show on next Tuesday, and we're not going to say it here tonight. I think Richie wants us to break it on Sunday night after the game. So hopefully we get the win at Spurs, and we'll all be in great spirits, and we can break that name on on Sunday night for who will come on the channel on Tuesday. That is a big one. We also have a few more names lined up. We don't have dates on just yet, but there's some big shows on that list. Yeah, so that was my answer to that question. Pete, and you want to come back on any other reply to Yano there?
Yeah, Yano, it's a great question. It's a fantastic question. And look, you have to understand that with the takeover and all the rest of it, there are a lot of Newcastle fan channels out there. You know, we pride ourselves on being a little bit different in the way in which we kind of come across as a channel. But we have to remember, you know, this is a hobby to us. We talk about it right from the beginning. We've talked about it even recently. We are five Newcastle fans, just like you guys in the chat. Lisa, Tom, the rest of you, Adam, yourself, Yano, Truls, Julie, all these guys and girls that are in the chat. We are just fans, just like you. But we also have families. We have jobs, we have commitments, other things that we do that, you know, that doesn't mean that we can kind of push it in the direction maybe that we want to. You know, there are other people out there that have more time to commit to this. And you know what? It's not about, for me personally, and I know Daz feels the same.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, we'd love to have 10,000 subscribers, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 subscribers, but we just enjoy talking about Newcastle. And we just love talking about Newcastle with like-minded Newcastle fans like yourselves that are in the chat, and great guests that we get on, you know, every week. And like Dad said, we've got more to come. And yeah,
sorry, Pete. Yeah, I was just going to jump in and say, like, if we did have 10,000 subscribers, we mightn't get to know you guys as closely as we do. Like, we recognize the names in the chat. We kind of know your personality as well. So Adam was bombing in the little comments when Ben was there as well. So yeah, we laugh along with you as well. So maybe it's better the way it is. Be careful what you wish for, you know.
But it is, you know, I can't get life goals. I apologize, life goals. Gary as well. So many others in the chat that are regulars. And you know what? Like Dad said, we feed off you guys. You guys come with some fantastic questions. And it engages the conversation with the guests. It engages the conversation with us. We are just, you know, we just love talking Newcastle with you guys. Just on a different level, with different perspectives. Every channel has got their own different perspective. You've got people that have had channels that have left them to the side for years, and then all of a sudden the takeovers come back and they're back on it again. You know, we're just here just doing our own thing, and we will continue to do that until we decide that we don't want to do that anymore. And I don't think that will happen anytime soon. But yeah, it's a great question. But whilst you're there, 130 in the chat, just click the subscribe button.
Yeah, help us.
Come join the fun.
Yeah, and that's just again, I'm just pinned on this question now actually, but yeah, it can be tough. Like those at least four of us were meant to be on tonight, but only two of us could make it, and I didn't want to leave Pete in his own either, because there's a couple of people sick in my house, so I just wanted to jump on as well. But yeah, it is tough, and like if there actually a secret, there's at times I'd say nearly all of us have left this. But we've all come back. It's only been for a few hours, and we all regroup again. So, but we'll continue to, as long as you keep enjoying it, we'll keep bombing out the shows. A question, but we got back to a football question. Let's go to this one. Interesting one on Timo Werner. So I'm going to answer first, Pete. I know it's directed at you from Life Goals. So I'd take Timo Werner. I'd also on that list of that Craig Hope had. I'd like to see two strikers. I think I've said it before. Who knows? That might happen. But Timo Werner, I think it hasn't clicked for him at Chelsea. I think if wherever he goes next, it probably will click. That's what I'm hoping for as well for him, as long as it's not another rival Premier League club. So yeah, I'd love to see him at Newcastle. How would he fit in? Be interesting. But again, I trust Eddie Howe's judgment. If Eddie Howe thought he was someone that could fit and work for him, bring him on. Love to see him at the club.
May surprise a few people. I'm saying this, but I think it'd be a terrific signing. I really do. I actually think him moving to Chelsea was all wrong. I actually think that the club that he was initially going to go to in Man United, I think he'd have done better there if he'd have gone there. I know an absolute mess at the moment, but I actually think he would have been better suited going to Man United. I just think the Chelsea move was all wrong for him. The price tag, the pressure, the transition that Chelsea were in, I just think it was all wrong. I think at this point in time, to rebuild his career, Newcastle United would be the perfect club for him. Yes, he won't be playing regular football in Europe, for example, straight away. But I think he would be the type of player that Eddie Howe would build a team around. And I think we would see very quickly him turn back to his best. Because a lot of people in England see Timo Werner as this rubbish striker that can't hit a barn door. Before he came to England, he was a top-level striker. Liverpool were after him. He was going to be the Firmino replacement. He was going to be that guy, and they just didn't have the finances to make that deal happen. They really wanted him, and that says. And I think there's a lot of talent in there, and I just think that he needs a fresh start. He needs a move. The longer he stays at Chelsea, the worse he's going to get. We've seen so many players down the years at Chelsea that have outstayed their welcome and then just fizzled away. Loic Remy being one of them, who left us and went to Chelsea. He was an absolutely brilliant player for that one season. Went to Chelsea, fizzled away. I just think Timo Werner would be a great striker. Would he be my first choice? No. I've talked about my obvious first choice. But the one thing that Timo Werner has is that he can play off the left as well. Play off the left, play off the right, predominantly on the left, but through the middle, he can play in a number of positions. So you can work him and he'll do a job regardless. So it's that ability to play in various positions that is key as well. And at 33 million, that's a snip.
Yeah, I'd definitely take him. Another question from Life Goals, and it is, does anyone keep in touch with Keith Person? Yes, we do. We have a WhatsApp group with Keith, and Keith is always bombing on the jokes to us at all hours of the night. But yeah, we do keep in touch with Keith. We had him back on on deadline day. We got him out of retirement for that one. I'm sure we'll get him back. We could convince him to come back and join us again at some stage. Yeah, I agree. Great guy. Let me see. There was this one. Maybe you want to answer this one, Pete. For Ben, it was a Ben on Vestergaard. What happened to him? Yeah, because he was doing brilliant for Southampton. I thought, because anytime we played them, I always thought, he's going to score. He's going to lay his head on a Ward-Prowse cross, bang, back of the net. But yeah, it hasn't worked out for Leicester. Any thoughts on that? I know you have a few friends that are Leicester fans.
Yeah, just a few, maybe more than a few actually. But 2 words for me: panic buy. That's what he was.
Panic buy. They were struggling for defenders at the time, weren't they? Yeah.
Wesley Fofana got injured. Johnny Evans has been struggling all season with niggly injuries. I think he's kind of coming towards the end of his career now. At the highest level, at the level that Leicester want to play at, I don't think he'll get back there. I think Leicester will sign a big centre back in the summer. But Vestergaard was not the guy. The reaction from Leicester fans wasn't positive, and I think it was like 15 million that they paid for him, which even Leicester fans were saying that was too much. And he was Southampton's main centre back. You think to yourself, why have they let him go for 15 million? It tells you a lot. And I think Vestergaard had hit his peak at Southampton, and Leicester got roped into paying the money to take him out. He's not. He's proven he's not the greatest of centre backs. And you know what said a lot to me. And I talked to a couple of Leicester fans about this. When Leicester were going through their absolute crisis, they were playing Daniel Amati at centre back, who's not really a centre back. instead of Vestergaard, who was on the bench, who is a natural centre back. When you have a natural centre back, right, playing or not even playing on the bench, and you're putting a non-natural centre back at centre back. And they did the same with Hamza Chowdhury as well. That tells you everything you need to know about the situation. And it's no different to what we've done at Newcastle with Dwight Gale. When we've played Alan St-Maximin as the frontline striker, and you've got a striker in Dwight Gale playing who could play up top that's on the bench and doesn't even get any minutes. It tells you everything you need to know about the player, about the situation, about what the club think about them.
Cool. And I'm still focused on that question from Yano earlier about how we could improve. So I'll come up with an idea. We should, when we run into situations where we're potentially short on numbers, we should get some of the viewers on with us, even for these kind of shows. So rather than a live line, maybe we'll get some of the lads and girls on with us. So I know Card has jumped on before onto live line, and Keith obviously is on away days every week.
Not he's biased. Not that he's biased.
Part of the furniture. So yeah, we'll have to get you guys on a few different shows at different stages. But it could be short notice, so that's the only thing. Yeah, there's a good question here from Life Goals as well. No, I'm going to go with Tom's questions first. Patrick Schick, would you take him in the summer, lads?
What do you think, Daz?
Yeah, I take it. I don't know. Again, I go back to I don't really start thinking about it until the summer. Instead of having a name in my head, I just let's see when the time comes. Because things chop and change. Could be injuries, blah blah blah, and maybe so I don't focus on one particular name as such. Lucas Paqueta, I'd like to see him now, and because I just think that he would link up with Bruno, and he's doing it for Brazil already. So
that link's getting stronger.
I know.
We talked about it on the transfer show, but that link seems to be getting stronger.
It does, and I think that'll be one of my ones that I think will go ahead now, even more so than Botman, because Botman, will they go back in again if Liam play hardball? Are they just going to get pissed off and move on? Because they're not in the same situation they were in January. They're not. I'm not going to use the word panic buying, but they're not under that a severe time pressure. So they can chop and change their targets. And I guess I'm sure they have a list of those positions. They have a number of names for each of them, and they'll just go, okay, if you don't want to deal with this, we'll move on. Instead of going back and back and back like that Diego Carlos, he's definitely not coming now. Really, for me, anyway, he wasn't at the, he was kind of heading towards 29, so it wasn't the right age to be bringing in. Okay, no, Dan Byrne is doing the job, but he's a different situation. He was able to hit the ground running. But so yeah, I'd go youngish, 23, 24-year-old kind of players to be kind of targeting to build on for the project. But so Patrick Schick, yeah, why not? But I don't mind. Let's see.
There's options out there. That's the beauty of Newcastle, is that we've got money to spend. We want a striker, and there are a number of strikers that will become available in the summer. And Patrick Schick, it's interesting. Martin Dean later on down the chat has just tweeted that Leverkusen have completely ruled out the Schick moving in the summer, and that doesn't surprise me, because I've mentioned before about Patrick Schick in that he's moved too quickly to too many clubs. He's kind of bounced between clubs throughout his career. He's never kind of put down roots and said, right, I'm going to be here for the next 6 years, and I'm going to really kind of, build with this team. And he needs to do that at this stage. He's had loan moves, he's had odd moves here and there. He's had good moments and then moments where he's kind of dropped off. He needs to put down roots. So it's either he moves in the summer and stays with that club into his 30s, or he stays where he's at. And Leverkusen, he stays with them and he continues the journey with that club. It has to be one or the other with him. But as a striker, he'd become an instant starter for us. There's no doubt about it.
Cool. I have a question here. This links into the Leicester-related question. Would either of you accept Jose Perez back at a cut price 12 million? For me, he's on decline at 28 and not in the right fit for our evolution. And I would agree. No, I would not. I wouldn't take Jose Perez back. I did love him when he was there, especially I remember when he scored the hat trick. I had my little boy sitting beside me, and he scored the hat trick that day, and I was like, "Oh, this is crazy." You're always sitting beside me for a game anymore. You're a good luck charm. But no, I wouldn't take him back. He's only got a few minutes of Premier League football this season, and also what really worked for him was working with Rafa, and I suppose the language and Spanish and everything like that. And it kind of clicked for him, but not now. No, I think for him as well, it might be better if he did go somewhere like Spain or like try his hand there again. Your thoughts, Pete?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't take him back. I think he'd jump at the chance to come back to Newcastle. Personally, he still talks about the club positively on social media. He only left because of the fact that Rafa Benitez left. I think if Rafa stayed, he stays. It's as simple as that. It says a lot. Look, there was a lot of question marks about Jose Perez with Newcastle fans anyway, in that he only kind of turned up in moments. He only had like short spells where he would score a lot of goals in a short period of time, but go a period of time, normally throughout the colder months in the season, where he wouldn't necessarily turn up or be effective. He's proven the same in the Leicester team. That's actually been a better performing Leicester team, and he can't get in there. Sometimes he can't even get on the bench. Sometimes he's on the bench in the Europa League, and he wasn't even getting minutes or getting a few minutes here and there. He will do what he should have done initially. When he said he was leaving Newcastle, he was adamant he wanted to go to Spain. He needs to go and play in Spain. He just needs to go and play in Spain because that's where he initially wants to play. He's never played in La Liga, even though he's a Spanish player. He came from Tenerife, who was in the second division of La Liga. He wants to go play there. Just go play there. Go and enjoy your football. Go play there. But we don't. Look, we're looking beyond Jose Perez right now. We're looking beyond. We're looking for the next player to come in and do the job. With all due respect to Perez, that's just reality.
Sorry, I'm laughing because I'm just thinking back to, I think it was just before the January window or the start of the January window, and we're talking about strikers we take, and Chris says Jermaine Defoe, and I was like, what? Jermaine Defoe? we're literally the richest club in the world. Jermaine Defoe doesn't come to the equation.
He's never going to live that down, is he?
It was very funny though. Look how that played out. Let's go for another question. Some good questions coming in. I'm going to go for Tom's one again. Jesse Lingard, would you go back for him in the summer? I'm going to say no. I did want him in January. But I think is he not something around 29 now as well? He's on a free transfer. He would demand massive wages. I think we can get back. I know turning my nose up at Jesse Lingard, but I'm going to say no to Jesse Lingard. I think he'll go to West Ham anyway.
Yeah, that's you're absolutely spot on, Daz. Jesse Lingard again was one of those players like Diego Carlos, like you talked about, Daz, already, and you're absolutely right with him. It was either a January or nothing type of signing. It was either he comes to us in January, or he doesn't come to us at all. Jesse Lingard is exactly the same. He's already got a private handshake there with David Moyes and Declan Rice at West Ham. He had a great time there. They're going to be playing European football of some sort next season. There's no doubt about it. So he's going to be at 29, like you said, and you're right. He is 29, nearly 30. He is going to be looking at, right, I've not got that many years left in the game. I want to play as high as I possibly can. I want the best chances of winning trophies as I possibly can. Personally, we're maybe a year or two behind, but I think he's got a better chance of winning trophies with us. But because he's already had the experience at West Ham, and he's got mates there, and he's got players there, he's got Moyes who's managed him at Man United and West Ham, it just fits for him on a free transfer. So for me, that's a done deal. I'm not even thinking about Jesse Lingard in the summer, if I'm honest. I'm thinking beyond him in terms of wing players that can come in.
Cool. Yeah, we just come up with a new show as well. Ask Pete and Daz. So yeah, we're creating on the fly. Yeah, we'll hear from Keith Roll. Pete and Daz, what are your thoughts on Marcus Rashford's situation at Man United, and would you take him at Newcastle? Yes, I'd take him at Newcastle. What is his situation? It's a weird old situation at Man United, isn't it? They've got so many strikers that are aging, in Cavani and Ronaldo. Ronaldo's still class, but still he's aging. And then the whole other situations we won't go into as well. And then Marcus Rashford, and he wasn't playing in the City game. Wasn't that a big talking point? But yeah, I'd take him. Definitely take him at Newcastle.
Marcus Rashford for me. If we could get a deal done in the summer, I'd take him. I would. I've spoken about Marcus Rashford before, and I go back to the point in which I asked the question to everyone in the chat. I asked the question to you, Daz. I asked the question to any Man United fans that are watching this, and there's a few that do tune in from our away day show that we do. In that, has Marcus Rashford actually been coached during his career at Manchester United? You look at how many managers he's had, how many chop and changes he's had as manager, how many different styles of football they've had at Manchester United. He hasn't had the opportunity, in my opinion, to be coached properly. Eddie Howe's the man to do that. And I think you could actually get a number 9 striker out of Marcus Rashford. He's fast, he presses high, when he's motivated, he's got a good shot on him. He can score a penalty. He can score a free kick. There are certain elements about hold-up play that he needs to maybe develop, but someone like Eddie Howe could work with him with that. And I think in our style of football, our high-press football, he could be perfect in that mould. He's another player that I would take 100% in. And it's really interesting, actually, because, it's interesting that people like Gary Neville and I think Roy Keane and maybe one or two other Manchester United ex-players have come out and said, something needs to be done. We need to get Rashford signed on a new deal. We need to get him, because I think everybody knows what we know is that if he goes to another team, he lights it up. People are saying, "Oh, Marcus Rashford is known for being Man United and being at a top club, and if he leaves that, then he's dropping his reputation." Blah blah blah. Not really. Not with Man United. Man United are going the opposite way. He comes to Newcastle, and we go the other way. We'll overtake them, and we'll be in a position where we're challenging for trophies that are going to give him the chance of being successful. So I just think that there's a chance there, and he's only got 1 year left on his contract after this season. So going into this summer, he's got 1 year left on his contract. If he turns around and says, "I'm not signing a new deal," like Lingard did, Man United have got a tough situation there. Do they sell him? Do they let him ride out the last year and move away on a free? The only thing I'll say is that PSG are really interested in him, and they have been for a number of years. Since he scored that goal in the Champions League against them, they've kept a real close eye on him, and they're looking to revamp their squad. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's holding out maybe for a move to there, to a team like PSG. That would be my only thing. But yeah, look, our hopes are not holding on Marcus Rashford. We've got a number of pool of players that we're going to look at.
Cool. Yeah, the questions are flying in. Okay, let's go with this one from Lisa. Do you think any of our under 23s deserve a step up? Yeah, I think Elliot Anderson. He's doing great work now with is it Luton or is it Bristol?
Bristol Rovers.
Bristol, yeah. He was. I think he was due to go to Luton, and then that fell through. And he's working with Joey Barton. Joey Barton. That's right. I know Dave Shepherd was a big fan who's normally in the chat as well of Elliot Anderson. Yeah. Step up. Yeah, it's going to be difficult though for him. I think another loan is, next year in the Championship will be where he'd go. And I think from listening to some other podcasts on the radio or in the car sometime that there's Championship clubs looking for him already to try and get him in. So so that's a good sign as well that they're trying to cozy up to Newcastle and get those deals done. But yeah. it'd be difficult for though to break in now, especially because we're talking about who will be coming in the summer and trying to move people off as well, and some of them on large contracts and so on and so forth. So anyone else, Pete, that stands out?
I wouldn't say break in as in be like commanding a place in the squad, but you know what I'd like to see. I'd like to see Santiago Munoz given a preseason with the first team.
Yeah.
I'd like him to be part of the first team in preseason. So if we go on a tour somewhere, if we go to Dubai or Saudi Arabia, or if we go to Germany or the US, wherever we end up going, I would love for him to be part of that squad and get some minutes actually in the first team, so we can actually have a look at him in the first team, playing with top players, the first team top players around him. That's what I would like. I'm not saying he's going to break through, but I would like him to be at least given that opportunity, that little taster of first team football. Because when you have that, we just talked about Marcus Rashford. He got thrown in because of a mass injury situation at Man United and ended up scoring 2 goals, and his career kind of skyrocketed from there. Who's to say that he doesn't do the same? But he needs to be given the opportunity, and that's what we've lacked as a club. Players being given a pre-season or a chance, some minutes in pre-season to show what they're about. But he along with Elliot Anderson, he'd be a player that I'd like to see as part of the pre-season squad.
Cool. Let's go. Here's Jordy 2 for life. Does Pete go to bed with his cap on?
No chance. It's only because obviously I had a shower and freshened up for the evening, and I haven't done my hair, so I don't take this off when I'm on a show. I'll take a little bit messy, but yeah.
Oh, good, Pete. It's lovely. It's lovely. Now, Keith, the stat man is trying to show us up here because he asked the question, how about Ross Stewart? I thought he meant Rod Stewart first, but Ross Stewart. I was the same as Gary. Who's that? But Keith does enlighten us then. He's Scottish international who's linked with a move to Norwich. He's already scored 22 goals in the lower leagues this season. So I wonder who he's playing for. But if Norwich are heading back to the championship for his own sake, I think that'd be the place to go, to Norwich, because they'll be looking to try and bounce back again. The kind of yo-yo thing that Norwich normally do, a bit like West Brom until Steve Bruce arrived. But yeah, do you know anything about Ross or Rod Stewart, Pete?
Nothing at all.
No.
Nothing at all. Don't know anything about him. But from that record that's on there, sounds good. He's not a player that you would bring in and keep in the team. You know, he's a player that you probably sign and loan out to Norwich for a season and say, go and play some minutes, go and play some games. That's the kind of signing I think it would be. But yeah, don't know anything about him. So yeah, one player obviously must be to keep an eye out, I reckon.
Cool. Is there any question you would like to take, Pete? Any one you really like to look of?
There's this one that's popped up. It's not necessarily a question. Well, yeah, it is a question really, but it's from Lifegoal. It's about Craig Bellamy. So it says Craig Bellamy did an incredibly dull interview recently. Never mentions Newcastle now. Clearly has a bee in his bonnet. Do you think would have progressed if Carver hadn't dragged him round an airport? What your thoughts on Craig Bellamy? Because I've got some thoughts on him. What are your thoughts on Craig Bellamy? On that,
I loved Craig Bellamy when he was playing for Newcastle. I just remember that goal was it against Feyenoord, and it's great spell with Sir Bobby. But yeah, I know off the pitch, and I know refs have said it before, he was always in their ear and nagging them. But yeah, I don't really know that much about him now. Did he go to Belgium? Was he at Anderlecht or someone like that for a while, doing a role there?
Worked with company for a little bit, but I know he's had some difficulties recently with mental health.
Okay.
He had a long period out because he was really struggling with his mental health. He's only just come back in and been sort of really seen more, certainly on the media front, just recently. Certainly, like literally in the last few weeks. So I know he was having a difficult spell, but I'm like you, Daz. I remember when he got signed from Coventry, and I'm kind of like, who's this guy? Like, who is he? When he comes in and has such a blistering season, and I loved him because he was a great foil for Alan Shearer. That pace and power, that connection as a strike force was deadly. He scored goals. He was a shit house. He was a bastard. Like you said, he was always in the referee's ear, always in the player's ear. I love that. We don't have enough of that in our squad at the moment. I love that type of player. But I don't blame Craig Bellamy. I blame Graham Souness. He is the one that I blame for the reason why Bellamy left the club. Bellamy never wanted to leave the club. He was happy at Newcastle. He was playing well for Newcastle. Bellamy was a scapegoat. He was the one that Graham Souness wanted to make an example of. Freddie Shepherd signed Graham Souness as a manager to try and ruffle up feathers in the changing room, to try and kind of bring out a couple of players and kind of make an example of them, because of the fact that Bobby Robson found it difficult towards the end in managing some of these young players and their characters. And he targeted Craig Bellamy and made an example of him, and he ruined a number of other players' careers, Laurent Robert being one of them. But he ruined Craig Bellamy's spell at Newcastle. And the point that you made on there, I think it was Life Goals with regards to the question, is that he doesn't really talk about Newcastle now, because I actually think he really enjoyed his time at Newcastle, and I think he loved playing for the club, the city, the fans. But with the fallout with Alan Shearer, who's a Newcastle great, I think it tarnishes his opinion of his career at Newcastle a little bit, and I can kind of understand that. It's the one time he's only had really major problems at a club, and Graham Souness started that off. And then he obviously had his fallout with Alan Shearer on the back of that, and it kind of fell apart. But Craig Bellamy was a really, really good, great player at the club who brought some fantastic times to Newcastle. We all remember that golden Feyenoord that sent us into the knockout phases of the Champions League. He was a player that did a lot of good stuff for us.
Yeah, and he worked really well with Shearer on the pitch and as well. I did hear on, I think it was in the True Faith podcast as well, that we did get lucky with Bellamy, because we were after Francis Jeffers, and he turned us down, and we went after Bellamy instead. And Francis Jeffers got loads of injuries, and it never worked out for him. So hey, that worked out well. Maybe we'll round it off. We'll end on this question, Pete. And it's an interesting one. I'm going to let you go first here. If you have to sign, you have to sign. It's not would you sign. If you have to sign one of these, Eden Hazard, Ronaldo, Bale, Ramsey, Aubameyang, who do you take this summer?
Oh God. Look, I think most people who know me that Cristiano Ronaldo is my idol. He's the guy I look up to in football massively. There's only a few players that I really look up to in football. Cristiano Ronaldo is one of them. Alan Shearer is another. And Ronaldinho is another as well. Three outstanding talents in very, very different ways. So it would be hard to turn down Cristiano Ronaldo to join Newcastle. It would just be an absolute dream for me. But in productivity, in terms of productivity, you're seeing what Aubameyang's doing at Barcelona at the moment. Given a team that is being built around him, he's scoring goals, he's playing great football. I think for productivity, Aubameyang would probably be the better suited player. I think Eden Hazard has never been the same player since he left Chelsea. I think Chelsea sold him at the right time. Gareth Bale is only motivated for Wales. And it's true. He's only really motivated for Wales, and I think Aaron Ramsey, we've got better players, and I think we've got better players. I don't think he starts for Newcastle at this current moment, and I think we're going to even be signing an even better midfield player. So that's just my opinion.
Okay, I'm going to go for my answer here and bring him up again. Ronaldo. I just go through them one by one. Ronaldo, I think after the World Cup, I think he's going to wind it down. So I wouldn't sign Ronaldo, even though like on his day he's class and he can score a hat trick. Bale, I said, yeah, it's all about Wales. Anything else? Even though with the right manager as well, like Eddie Howe, could he get something out of him? Yes, he could. Ramsey, no, and still don't want him. Every week you ask me in the Fully Loaded Transfer Show. No. Aubameyang, I haven't actually been following him how he's doing in Barca, but it's good to hear that he's doing well. You know what? I'd try Eden Hazard because it's sentimental really, because with the last time I played Football Manager, when was that? That was the 2011. That's the game, the version I have here. Yeah, I used to bring him into my team, and he used to be class. So build my team around him. So yeah, he's 31. Whereas I don't know what the age of the rest of them, but yeah, maybe Eddie Howe could get something out of him. I think fully fit Eden Hazard, firing on all cylinders, would be interesting for Newcastle. So, okay, I don't want any of them really, because I want to in the project I want to bring in young enough players that can build and grow with us, rather than I'm not saying they're all mercenaries or anything like that, but I'd rather than a big name. I want someone that will grow with us. But if I'm going to go Eden Hazard for my answer. But that is it for tonight. I think we've bluffed our way through that after. Oh, one more.
Yeah,
the second team of support. Oh, do I have a second team of support? Yeah, I do like Barca. I like PSG, but I shied away from PSG. I bought a PSG jersey when I visited Paris when I was 17, and it's all because of Ginola. They had a Ginola and a Ree and Valdo or something like that. Yeah, so. I kind of had a team in each country then, but it was just nothing like Newcastle. Like I suppose, and then local team, I'll say Go United, but I don't know what they're doing these days. But so I don't really have a second team as such. I keep an eye on I'd say a team in each other country, but just really trying to see if they have any good players that could come to Newcastle. So that's where my eyes are focused.
Yeah, I'm the same. I've got teams that I look out for. PSG, I have to, otherwise my brother Lee would hammer me for it. I've actually, obviously followed PSG for a number of years, and I remember when we went to PSG when Ronaldinho was there. We went to one of the games. We got back a PSG top. I think it was the old Opal top. I still got it somewhere. It's got Ronaldinho on the back, and it was his top, and I stole it, and I've still got it to this day, even so many years on. So yeah, I do follow PSG, follow their results. Sheffield United, because I was at their academy as a young kid, and they looked after me so well. There was such a fantastic club for bringing in young talent, and it was only for family reasons why I didn't continue playing for them. But I loved my time at Sheffield United, playing at Bramall Lane, wearing the red and white. It was fantastic to be at a professional football club and to be treated so well. So I always look out for their results. And one of my really good friends that I grew up with is a mad Sheffield United fan. So I've been to a few games with him to show that support. And then ultimately, any team that Cristiano Ronaldo's played for, I keep an eye on. I've literally got a top. I've got a shirt for every club that Cristiano Ronaldo plays for. That's how much I love the guy.
Man United.
So yeah, I've got a Man United top with Ronaldo on the back. I've got a Sporting Lisbon top. I've got a Real Madrid top. Maybe fingers crossed I get a Newcastle top with his name on the back of it. Maybe, probably not. But yeah, I've literally Juventus top as well. I just followed Cristiano Ronaldo wherever he goes, because I just love the guy. I think he's one of the best ever to do it, and I love everything about his motivation as a footballer. I think he's great. So yeah, they're the teams that I kind of look out for, really.
I'm going to call Gary out here in this one, and can call him bullshit here, because Aubameyang was actually at Newcastle earlier in his career. No, he wasn't.
He played against Newcastle earlier on in his career. So before he made it big from a St Etienne point of view, he played a friendly, I think, for St Etienne against the local Newcastle team. So he was up in Newcastle playing in Newcastle against a local team. He did actually play for Newcastle, and it was actually during that period when we played against him that he kind of caught the club's eye. And if anybody remembers, we were very close to signing him, Aubameyang. We really wanted him, but I think St Etienne wanted 16, 17 million from him. I think we're only willing to pay 10. So yeah, not a Portugal top. Sporting Lisbon. Ronaldo all day. You see what Messi's doing over the last 3 years. Messi's been an absolute joke over the last 3 years. Ronaldo still maintains his levels to a certain extent, even at 37, 38 years old. There is no comparison, in my opinion.
Yeah, you just put me on a sidetrack there. I just think, remember when we were, this is off topic, remember when we were looking for the Shearer's replacement, and Marseille were playing, and I think it was must have been the UEFA Cup final or something like that. And Drogba, I thought Drogba was going to be coming to Newcastle. He was linked to Newcastle so heavily. Oh, he's there. I was like, why can't we get him? I was like, he'd be perfect replacement for Alan Shearer. And then he went to Chelsea. Or did we miss out on Champions League or something like that? And then he went to Chelsea. And I was like, I was good at. Sorry,
we missed out. I think the season after on penalties in the qualifying rounds.
I remember that. Yeah,
at St James's Park. I think we won away from home, and then I think we lost on penalties at St James's Park, something like that. But I was there. I'd love to tell you the story about away. Me and Lee going to away at Marseille away from home for the second leg. Absolute madness, what I experienced. I've never experienced anything like it in an away game, particularly away in Europe. But yeah, I was at that game where Drogba absolutely tore us apart. Unbelievable. And me and Lee walked. Funny enough, that night we were on the supporters trust plane, because we drove up to Newcastle with the Newcastle, and we travelled out to Marseille, flew out to Marseille with the Newcastle United supporters that all travelled together. And when we were coming back into the airport, going back to Newcastle, I remember there was a group of people around Sir John Hall, and we were there with them, and they were kind of having a go, saying, this team's not good enough, we need to sign this, and this. And they were having a go, and he was saying, yep, we're going to invest. And he was really, really polite talking. And I remember there was a few of us who was like, we need to get Drogba. And there's a few people in Newcastle fans, and I was kind of like, I was only a young kid at the time, 16 Also, we need to get Drogba. He's class. And then he obviously goes to Chelsea. But yeah, some of the experiences on that day was unreal.
Sorry about that tangent. Yeah, just came into my head there, Drogba. But yeah, look, we'll leave it there for tonight. We've rambled on. Thanks to Ben who did join us at the start, and he could only stay for half an hour, as we found it just before the show. But he did stay for 40 minutes. He got some of the questions in. But yeah, you came to us with some great questions, and it was nice to bounce our answers back to you. But yeah, we are back again on. Do we know the day yet? We were back with an away days, I think. Here it is. But have we confirmed the date yet?
Not yet. I was just trying to find out whether it's Fuad or another person representing the podcast that's going to be joining us. Not confirmed the date, but look, as soon as the date's confirmed, we'll get it straight out there. But yeah, definitely looking to still do an away days. The Wolves, Leicester one's already sorted in place, but we're going to try and get this away days for Spurs because it was a great chat last time.
Cool. And we're back then. We'll return to football. Yes, it's back. And I don't count international as football. It's only tournaments. That's all I'm really interested in. But so the real football is back. The Premier League's back. And we play on Sunday. It's 4:30 game is, and then our review show, where I think we're targeted around 8 o'clock that evening. So hopefully all of us will make that one. We're going to have all the lads back together. And yeah, just a reminder again, really, I suppose, to subscribe. And also, I should mention our sponsors, because I will forget. So a shout out to, all the details already, but blackandwhitearmy.com. Click there for Bronwyn's website, and what she's still selling there. And she will be back on with us soon to tell us about 1881 and what's going to launch there. Shout out as well to shybarnes.com. Simon, who was in the chat at the very start, at least tonight, and go check out the website. There's actually the pictures don't do it justice here, really. I must get new pictures or bring up the website again, because there's some nice t-shirts coming into the summer as well. Nice stuff on the site as well, and pins and prints, and of course Dean and all his range of merchandise there. And if you use the code Loaded Mag, you get a 10% discount, of course. So tell him we sent you his direction. That is it for tonight. Thanks, Pete, for joining me.
Absolute pleasure. Always good to catch up and talk all things NUFC. Looking forward to doing a bit more in the days to come.
Cool. So good night, everyone, and we shall talk to you at the weekend. Good luck.
Now is the time, a time you'll look back on, a time you adopt as inspiration. You will recollect this time, this moment, right now. Motivate yourself towards success.